Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Once again, this is going to be another late in 2019 SWI, so a still worth it video. And I've been doing a lot of iPhones, just a lot of iPhone content in general, dude. I've been really knocking those videos out, but I figured I might as well bring it back to my roots, bring it back to my Android side, and talk about one of my actually favorite Samsung phones that I've ever owned and that I think were ever released. And I actually just compared this to the iPhone 11 as well, and it's a Samsung Galaxy S8. And in my opinion, this was probably the biggest shift in the phone manufacturing idea, I guess, in a long time. Now, obviously, the iPhones were the best things, Samsung Galaxy One were the best things too, but in terms of the evolution of phones, I do think the Samsung Galaxy S8 really shifted the mindset of a lot of phone manufacturers to start reducing the bezels on their displays and really making their phones much more premium than what they were making before. Now, if you look at the Galaxy S8, you might be thinking to yourself now in 2019, what are you talking about, dude? All phones look like this, they all look the same, no bezels, notches, whatever. But when it was released, the Galaxy S8 back in 2017 in March, phones still had quite a bit of bezel on them. I mean, the phone before this, the big one, was the iPhone 7 and the 7 Plus, and that's what a lot of people were comparing this phone to. And even the Galaxy S7 and S7 Edge, those things had a ton of bezel on it too. And this phone really kind of shifted Apple, I think, in my opinion, to actually create the iPhone 10 as well. And eventually we got the Note 8 and the Note 9, which, that removed all the bezel, basically almost all the bezel too. But looking on the front of the Samsung Galaxy S8, like I said, that's the biggest, coolest thing about it. You had a 5.8-inch Super AMOLED display, a 1440p panel, which is very good, a very good panel still in 2019. And what's even funny is that the iPhone 11 Pro that I just compared this to, I think has not as good of a screen as the Samsung Galaxy S8. So I think the Galaxy S8 has a better panel than the iPhone 11 Pro. Now, honestly, I would rather have the 11 Pro than this phone, but still, the screen, that's the one thing you communicate with all the time. And that's pretty impressive that we're able to have a better panel on the Galaxy S8 than on the brand new iPhone 11 Pro. And looking on the sides, the chassis of the phone, I can tell you this phone still feels like a very premium device. Since its release, we have gotten the One UI update, even from the earlier review that I did this year. So that's a humongous thing for this phone. On the bottom, USB Type-C, as well as a headphone jack, so that is really cool. On the back, a glass back, still very premium, a single camera. You do have that fingerprint sensor to the right or left of the camera, I don't really know which way it is. But it's one of the dumbest things Samsung ever did. I don't know why they put that fingerprint sensor right there. They could have easily put it in 30 different spots of this phone, but they had to pick it right there. They eventually moved it with the Galaxy S9, so that's a good thing, but I don't really know what Samsung was thinking there. But that's pretty much it in terms of the outside. For a lot of phones, sometimes a couple years later, I would always be it looks so outdated, this and that, but this phone, there's still a lot of phones in the market that don't even look as good as this. And it's funny, the screen to body ratio is actually higher on the Galaxy S8 than on the iPhone 11 Pro. So that's really funny. But all is not good with the Galaxy S8. Now, one of the saddest things with this phone is that there probably won't be another software update for this phone for a while. And what I mean by that is, I don't think it's going to get Android 10. If it was released with Android 7.0, you are able to get Android 9.0 on it with their One UI software, but dude, I don't know if it's going to go any further. And that's super sad because, this phone is still super capable. I think this phone and the Samsung Galaxy S9 are more, in tune with each other and related than they aren't. So I don't know why Samsung has to go and do their usual couple software updates. I think they should go and expand the software on here if they really want to be competitive with Apple and all those different companies that are increasing their software updates, even OnePlus. So I think Samsung should go and increase their software updates lifecycle and improve the Galaxy S8. But even if it doesn't get Android 10 officially, there's still going to be a ton of custom ROMs and tons of different things that people are going to port over for the Galaxy S8. So don't feel like you have a super outdated device or anything. It's still super capable, and Android 10 definitely is an update. We've already seen Galaxy S10 Plus get that update. Soon the Galaxy S10 is going to get it, and all those other phones too. But ultimately, I think it's pretty cool that the Galaxy S8 even got Android 9, and they got that refresh with One UI, so I'm super happy about that. So that pretty much covers that in terms of software. Of course, it's still going to get custom ROMs and everything. So moving on to the performance side of things. Now, I'll tell you the specs and I'll tell you my real world use right after. So this thing has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 835 chipset, an octa-core CPU, an Adreno 540 GPU, and 4 GB of RAM. Now, there was only ever one model of the Galaxy S8 which was the 64GB model. Now, we've seen since this phone's release that usually phone manufacturers release a couple different variants of their phones. So their bottom variant will have like, let's say like 64, 128GB with like 6GB of RAM, and the top tier model will have like 8 or 12GB of RAM. So that's a super smart thing that phone manufacturers have been able to pretty much monetize off of by like getting the same phone but having like 2 different variants of it. But this one only had one variant, which was the 4GB model. And I'll tell you one thing, dude, this phone, it doesn't feel like a cheap phone when you're using it, obviously because of that build quality, but at the same time, like, you can kind of see that it's showing its age a little bit. Like, I'm not gonna sit here and say it's a super slow phone, because it definitely isn't. Like, it's still a super capable phone, but I have seen it kind of glitch up a little bit. And if I didn't compare it to my iPhone 11 Pro, I probably wouldn't even notice that big of a difference. But after that comparison, dude, I noticed like this phone is kind of slow. And I'm not going to sit here, like I said, and say it's super slow. I don't think it's a horribly slow device. Like, I would still rather have this thing than like an iPhone 5 or an iPhone 6 or something like that, or even like a Galaxy S5. But like, I can tell you, this phone it's not showing its age, but it's definitely, showing its age in a different way, I guess. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. Like 2017, that wasn't too long ago, but compared to how fast phones are now, I mean, we have phones with like 12GB of RAM and like super stock software. I think a lot of this does come from Samsung, their own One UI. Even though it is an improvement from TouchWiz, it still isn't that good of software, in my opinion, compared to OnePlus's software or even stock Android. In my opinion, OnePlus's software has always been the best. But hopefully Samsung doesn't learn from this and keep improving their software. But ultimately, what I can tell you in terms of performance, when you're switching through apps, when you're doing like, the usual basic apps that you're going to be doing in a day, Snapchat, Instagram, going through web, Chrome browser, App Store, downloading things, download documents, whatever, that stuff is probably going to be okay. You're not going to notice that little like extra second or two that it takes to load up something. However, I think when you do go into like the more intensive route, that's when things kind of go a different way. And the one thing I don't like the most is probably the Galaxy S8's heating up all the time. For some reason, when you're going to go those intensive games, sometimes it does heat up a little bit. It's not that big of a deal if you have a case on it, but when you're doing it raw like I am without a case, that tends to, mess up a little bit. That tends to be a little bit more apparent of how hot this phone gets, but ultimately it's not that big of a deal. So in terms of performance, I give it, like a 7 out of 5. It's definitely not slow, but you can definitely notice a little bit of a difference, especially when you look at the newer phones. So that kind of covers that. Now let's go ahead and hit on the camera. Now there's only one camera sensor on this. It's a 12 megapixel sensor. And since its release, we've seen such an improvement on cameras, with like the Notes and the Galaxy S10s and the iPhone 11 Pros. We have like triple camera setups now, which really add a lot of flavor to the camera. I think that's the best way to describe it. Flavor to the camera. The Galaxy S8, in terms of quality and in terms of picture quality and everything, I think it's tremendous. I think you have a lot going for it. There's still a ton of features built into the camera app, which is really, really nice. But I will say you are missing things like the telephoto lens and the ultra-wide sensor and things like that, which you might care about, you might not. You can still do 4K at 30 frames on this camera. And like I said, I think the quality is still very good. But when you wanted to zoom in like that 2x optical zoom or whatever it is, you don't have that capability. If you want to do that ultra-wide sensor, you don't have that capability either. But you can get some of those features with like a Note 8 or like a Note 10. You can get all of those. But I can definitely tell you in terms of the camera quality, it's not bad, but you can definitely see that the newer cameras do have some really, really cool features. So the front camera is 8 megapixels and it gets the job done as well. It's 1440p. And ultimately, I think the cameras are good enough to get you going. And I think if you taking a photo or something, I don't think you're going to care that much, honestly. You're going to take the photo and you're going to be all going on with your day. So you're not going to be like, oh man, I wish I had an ultra wide sensor or whatever. Like, you're going to be perfectly fine. So that kind of covers that. That's my opinion on the camera. Now, in terms of the battery life, there's a couple ways to look at this, okay? It's a 3000 mAh battery. You have wireless charging. It's pretty good in terms of the stock battery life. However, you are probably going to get this used if you do end up buying it. And the battery has probably degraded, so it's not at that full 3000 anymore. It's probably at like, who knows, like 2500 or even less. So what I would tell you is that if you can replace the battery yourself, that'd be great. If you can't, then it's okay too. Like, you could probably get like most of your day usage out of it, but because of that big screen and because of the the power and the optimization of the chipsets within these phones that were a little bit older, I would probably say the battery life is average or a little bit below average. Not the best, but you could probably like I said, get a day out of it on your usage depending. But I wouldn't just dependent on it. I wouldn't just go like days and days without charging. Like, it's definitely not that good anymore. But ultimately, dude, what I can tell you is the Samsung Galaxy S8 is still a humongous bang for your buck. Like, you can get so much value out of this thing. You have that USB Type-C port, which I personally really do like. Awesome build quality, awesome screen, pretty good camera, micro SD card slot. That is a huge thing. That's something that I always love seeing in phones, even used phones and older phones. That's an amazing thing to look at. I literally love seeing that. IP68 dust and water resistance, so that's something that's so huge. Like even the iPhone 11 Pro, has it now, but this phone had it in 2017, which is awesome. And if you can get one for around if you can get one for less than 200, that'd be awesome. That's really good. If you can't, then, it's still a very good value in my opinion. If you want a bigger phone, but the same model, get a Galaxy S8 Plus, which I will be reviewing shortly. But ultimately, dude, Galaxy S8, tremendous phone. One of the best bang for your bucks in my opinion. And if you want to pick one up, I'll leave the cheapest one I find on Amazon and I'll link it straight down in the description below so you guys can get it from there. But you guys can help support the channel at the same time too. But that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section below. Hit that like button, that will mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it'll mean so much if you guys could hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel. All those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate it if you guys could check it out. But more importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out to the one.